Today, I want to explain something simple but very important: how to install a door properly. There are two main ways to install a door. One method is more precise but slower, and the other is much quicker and commonly used by professionals. The first method is to remove the old door completely and start aligning the new door from scratch. This is the most precise way because you are adjusting everything directly to the frame. But there are a few problems with this method. First, it usually requires two people to hold the door and align it. Second, it takes a lot more time because you need to keep trimming and adjusting until everything fits perfectly. And third, when you cut and trim the door inside the house, you create fine dust. Even with good dust extraction, some dust still spreads, and that dust can damage electronics and equipment. That's why it is often better to do the trimming work outside. This method gives very accurate results, but it takes more time and more effort. The second method is faster and is very common in the trade. Instead of starting from zero, you use the old door as a template. First, you mark all the corrections on the old door. Then you transfer those measurements to the new door. Saves a lot of time. For example, if two people are installing doors without using a template, they might install 1 or 2 doors in a day. But if they use the old door as a template, the same 2 people can install 3 or even 4 doors in a day. So it's much faster. However, you still need to consider the hinge sizes and the spacing around the door. Normally, a door needs around 3 millimeters of space on each side when installed in a new frame. Older frames may require a slightly bigger gap. There are also some standard measurements used in most installations. The door handle is usually installed around 950 millimeters from the floor. The top hinge is normally about 150 millimeters from the top of the door. The bottom hinge is about 200 millimeters from the bottom, and the middle hinge is usually placed around 300 millimeters below the top hinge. Some installers place the middle hinge exactly in the center, but many professionals keep the top 2 hinges closer together. That's because most of the door weight is carried by the top hinge. Once the old door is removed, the new door needs to be trimmed to the correct size. After that, you mark the hinge positions. It's best to mark hinges with a Stanley knife or a very sharp pencil. You have to be careful with the markings, because if the lines are not precise, the hinges may create unwanted gaps. After marking the hinges, you cut the recess for them. Many installers use a router to remove the main material, but leave the edges slightly proud. Then the edges are finished with a sharp chisel to get a clean and precise fit. Next comes the lock and the handle. First, you measure the width of the lock mechanism. Then you drill several holes using a flat wood bit. The flat bit should be slightly wider than the body of the lock, but not too wide. If the hole is too big, the faceplate of the lock will not cover it properly. Once the lock body fits inside the door, you mark the faceplate and cut the outline. You can use a multi-tool or a chisel to cut the edges. After that, the center material can be removed with a router, but you must avoid cutting beyond the marked edges because that will be visible later. After the lock is installed, you drill the holes for the handle. Some handles require a little more space inside the door. Usually, installers use a 25mm flat bit for this. If the lock allows it, it is better to use through bolts instead of small screws. These bolts create a sandwich effect that holds the handles tightly and keeps the lock stable for many years. When it's time to hang the door, it helps to have a door lifting tool. This allows you to lift the door slightly with your foot while fixing the hinges. At first, it's best to use only 2 screws per hinge. This allows you to adjust the door if needed. Close the door and check how it fits. If the door doesn't close properly, first check the frame alignment. Sometimes the problem is not the door, but the frame. Also remember that many doors have patterns, and if you trim the door unevenly, the pattern will look wrong. And you don't want to look at an uneven door every day. Sometimes it is better to adjust the frame and repaint later rather than leaving the door uneven. The strike plate should only be installed after the door closes correctly. Close the door and check the alignment with the door stops. If needed, adjust the stops on the frame. Then mark the position of the lock on the frame. Cut the opening and install the plastic insert. After that, install the metal strike plate. The plastic insert helps make the cut look neat, but it also slightly increases the opening size, so this needs to be considered. A properly installed door should close smoothly and easily. You should not need to push it hard, and it should not have too much movement when closed. Ideally, you should be able to push the door gently, and it closes by itself. Changing doors can make a huge difference in a home. When you upgrade doors, floors, staircases, balustrades, or install new MDF furniture, the whole house starts to look different. If you want to do it yourself, this guide should help you succeed. But if you prefer professional work, we at SGROUND Services are always ready to help. And remember, every project starts with an idea. Take your time, plan it well, and enjoy the process.